Hey everyone, so people have been asking me for me to talk about the mechanics of Point 2. I'm going to call it Point 2. And basically, since I played through it thoroughly on Proud and Crit and base level Crit, I guess I can give some insight into what the game plays like for me and how I felt about it. This game is basically a tech demo for KH3, a glorified demo. So, how do I feel about it right now? I think it's a step in the right direction, but it still has problems that are too close to BBS and DDD that it's hard to ignore them. But I'll start with the good first. Also, keep in mind, I'm not scripting this. I'm kind of just going to be talking like I would on stream because I don't want to really script something right now for this. But let's jump into the graphics. It's a very graphically impressive game. It looks very nice on the PS4, and it's, a new Kingdom Hearts, completely new. And, all the areas look very pretty. The updated character models look very nice and modern. Although, let's jump into the frame rate, because that's probably kind of part of it. The frame rate is, on the original PS4, seems to be 30 FPS currently, and it's locked at that. On the PS4 Pro, however, it goes up to 60 FPS, although it's not consistent. So that's just something to note. If you want the better frame rate, you need it for PS4 Pro. Let's jump to music now. Not much to say here. It's Yoko. It's pretty good. A lot of reused songs, but there are a couple new songs, and they sound nice. Final boss song is pretty neat too. So now that we got those out of the way, let's just jump into the combat, because that's really what interested me the most about this game. Combat as a whole is slightly improved to what we've seen on the handhelds. For example, physical combos are now more viable. They actually generally do damage, they're relatively fast, and they're just not like BBS or DDD where you're considered dumb for doing physical attacks. They added a little bit of difference to Aqua's physicals as well. Her opening aerial attack can be an aerial spiral, similar to Sora in KH2. It's very nice. It's good at closing distances, and it doesn't whiff if you're coming from the air, although it seems to whiff if you do it from the ground. I know that sounds weird, but it's actually possible. The rest of her aerial combat isn't too great, but that's a really good move that they put in for her opening of combos. Although aerial combat with Combo Master is pretty sick. Moving on, now we have Cartwheel, which is no longer OP like it was in BBS. In BBS, you could actually max level Cartwheel, and same with Ven, and basically dodge infinitely if you mashed it, and you would never be able to be hit. It would be impossible. They fixed that, so now that there's actually a cooldown in which you can be hit in between them, so now you actually have to time them, and it means you can't just mash Cartwheel around the arena to dodge everything. Also, magic finishers are great, and they hit very hard, which is nice because you have to build them up. They're not for free, and they're very rewarding to get. Which leads into the next thing. Magic in combat is actually very fluid and well done. It's probably one of the best parts of combat right now. And you probably could say in the handhelds that was the same, but it's not ridiculous OP in this because, you have MP, and it's kind of hard to get that back without wasting your limited items you get in the game. It's really nice how Aqua can interact with some of the magic like Blizzard sliding and stuff. The way you can build up your finishers, though, are similar to BBS, but it's done really well because it's not forced to use them whenever you build them, and you can build up multiple at once. So that means you can build up, your fire finisher, your blizzard finisher, and even Spellweaver all at the same time and use one after another. Options out of guard. Okay, so her guard's the same, right, as BBS, but it's a little bit different mechanically, just very slightly. You actually have options out of guard now. You can, especially a successful guard where you get hit, you can immediately cartwheel, or you can even jump attack out of it, which you might have seen in one of my previous videos from this. It's very nice that you can act fast out of it. Shot lock, I would say, is actually pretty well done in this. It's not really overpowered, although it does limit you to how much you can use it. I don't know if they allowed more items, if that would make it really broken. It probably would, but fortunately this game doesn't let you just restore shot lock for free easily. So for now it seems pretty good. It still hits pretty hard, but it's not insanely ridiculous if you're slightly overleveled. So as a whole, the combat system is pretty fluid with the way everything can interact with each other. For example, you can do a full ground combo mixing in magic as well, which is very nice that now you can go back to like you could in KH2 and do a physical combo, throw magic in there, and then go into a finisher. The magic could be your finisher, it could be your opening, whatever. And you can chain that into stuff like Spellweaver too, because Spellweaver kind of explodes like a drive. So it can stagger anything that can be staggered, and then you can lead into a Spellweaver combo as well, which is very nice how you can chain that, and then you can maybe chain that into like a shot lock or something. So that's a lot of combo possibilities you can do that are very nice. Moving away from combat to talk about a couple of other things that were positive. New Game Plus is actually pretty neat. You know, they did that in DDD. In this, it carries over stuff like items, Aqua's customization, challenges, certain, I don't want to get too in depth, but a couple other things too. It does also let you choose your difficulty, even in like, let's say you beat the game on Proud, in your New Game Plusing, you don't have to play crit. You can New Game Plus into beginner mode and, you know, do other stuff. That's actually pretty cool. I like that you can choose the difficulty. You're not locked into anything. You're not forced to play on like a higher one or something like that. I think that was a nice, you know, touch. Next we have, you know, customizing Aqua. Kind of neat. It's a little limiting, which is a bit weird, but they haven't really done this before for Kingdom Hearts, so it's a little bit, you know, they'll probably throw something like that in KH3 and make it more in-depth or something. Also, before I forget, I guess I'll talk about the bosses real quick. The positive ones are generally the ones where you... I don't know if I'll spoil it, but the humanoid fights are very well done and pretty fun. They display that the bosses have revenge value, and you can also dodge and punish, or block and punish. So you get rewarded for learning the fight well, and then you can do it without, you know, randomly getting hit for no reason. So I thought that was very nice that they included, you know, a couple bosses like that. Alright, now that I said basically everything good, I can say, of course, now I'm going to go into the negatives, because, you know, I do critique these games pretty, you know, heavily just because I like to see things improve. And I know a lot of people are probably going to come up with, you know, excuses and reasons for everything, but you know, this stuff needs to be said, I feel. Let's see, where to start? Auto-target, it's still garbage. I feel like it was best in KH2, you know, KH1 still had like pretty bad auto-target, but then they got like worse after KH2, and now it's really no better. You can easily target an enemy clear across the arena instead of the one directly in front of you that will steal your target for some reason. Although you can target switch now again, which is, you know, always nice to be able to do, but the auto-target does get in the way a lot. Next we have a lot of lag pauses happen in this game on both PS4 normal and PS4 Pro. It's pretty random and inconsistent, and it does throw off a lot of you know, your gameplay sometimes when you're trying to like play well and move around and such. The frame rate is pretty inconsistent even on the PS4 Pro. It slows down in a lot of rooms, and you'll notice that in rooms where you spin the camera a lot, or the forest area was probably the biggest offender. That was very laggy for me. So those are things that, you know, they might fix, but it did stand out. There's also a crash that exists on the PS4 Pro, which is basically before the second Devil's Wave boss fight. There's a cutscene that can randomly crash your PS4 Pro. And it's not even really being unlucky. A ton of people have already crashed there. And you can crash also dying in the fight and retrying, so if you're playing on like Proud or Crit on the PS4 Pro, you'll probably crash. Although this is the Japanese version, you know, maybe they'll patch it eventually, or maybe it won't even exist in English, or maybe English will have more, who knows. 2.5 didn't quite do as well in English as JP though, so I'm not too convinced it's going to end up good. Let's see, let's move on to combat though. So as far as combat goes, ground combos are still kind of slowish and bad. The clunkiness of BBS are still present with Aqua. This might be mostly because it's Aqua and they didn't want to change her too much. Maybe Sora will be faster at combos. Something that would probably help a lot is if they had combo modifiers like in KH2 with Sora. Those definitely added a lot of diversity to how you chose to do a combo and could lead into some pretty fast and neat combos. Although I will say the slide dash now with Aqua is pretty nice at closing the distance. It has like a pretty, far range. So, comboing her with physical attacks doesn't feel extremely bad. It's just like a little bit slow still. Finishers are pretty bad though. Aqua's little explosion, you're wide open during it, not much range. Honestly, skipping that is usually a better idea, to be honest. So that could probably be improved if they chose a different finisher, but maybe they just wanted to keep her similar. Spellweaver, unfortunately, is still very slow and clunky. A lot of times I just didn't even want it because of how slow it was to attack. It was much faster to attack with the normal physical combos, which were still kind of slow. So they didn't change Spellweaver really at all. I kind of wish they did, but we're kind of stuck with that now. Hopefully in Cage 3 they don't have I just don't like slow combos. I like combat to be, fast-paced, feel like, very fluid. We'll see what they do though. My next complaint would be the camera. It is way too close to Aqua. It's really weird too, because sometimes it can get stuck behind, objects and trees, just like Final Fantasy 15. But being so close to her, you can't really see behind her at all. And the way mob fights are designed, it's very bad that you can't see at all behind her. You can be cheap-shotted so easily trying to do a combo against something in front of you without being able to see if something is going to hit you from behind, because enemies in this game, a lot of them have projectiles that are very fast and can hit you clear across the arena, so having a camera so close that you can't see anything around you is kind of a disservice to that. I guess I should talk about critical mode now. It's kind of a disaster. I don't really know what they were thinking when they designed crit for this game, but for one, they generally cut down on your MP the higher difficulty you are, and I don't think that was a smart decision at all, because Aqua's a magic user, and magic is very fun and fluid to use in this game, and they're cutting down on that on the highest difficulty so that you're mostly reduced to combo physical spam, which they don't understand how to scale games properly ever since Cage 2. Cage 2 was the last one, or probably the only one to really do scaling properly. So you do you do less damage on crit, not really chip damage. They did fix that. That's a plus. It's not like DDD where you do chip damage if you're slightly underleveled on crit. But it is a problem that they give you so little MP that most of the playthrough is you can use like one magic, and then if you use another, your MP's gone. So your option is, use a couple magic in your combos and run away until your MP comes back, because it's not safe otherwise, because you want Cure on hand at all times on crit. And it's nice that Cure takes all your MP, sure, that's fair, it makes you think about it, but the fact that they just took away most of your MP on crit is really bad. And that sort of leads me to like the whole getting cheap shotted in mob fights on crit. You don't really have much crowd control here other than maybe a shot lock, in which, by the way, you're wide open after you do shot lock. So that's kind of a problem the way they designed it. It's kind of an issue that you're reduced to mostly physical combos against mob enemies that can two-shot you. Especially the ones that can hit you clear across the arena. You can guard everything, which is nice, but acting outside of guarding is very limited, I would say. So a lot of it might be the camera's issue too, that you can't react to really anything and you get punished for doing combos on things. But it's just a kind of a mess when you put all these together on crit. So part of me is glad that you had to unlock crit to be able to play it, because I felt like Proud was actually pretty good. You didn't really die easy because you had a good amount of HP, and you still had a decent amount of magic too. But on crit, you have none of those, and they also took away your they took away second chance. I believe they took away Leaf Bracer too, although it's hard to tell because I usually don't cure if something's gonna hit me. And also they got rid of Combo Master, which was another disaster mistake, because Combo Master is a lot of fun to use in combat. because whiffing still happens in this game. And that does get in the way of the fun when you're trying to do aerial combat and you just whiff all the time. That is the worst thing about crit for me in aerial combat, is just getting that first hit to connect is so hard on those like enemies that are just flying all over the place. So they really could have done something, a bunch of things different there really to make crit better. And yeah, they need to really fix the scaling. The scaling is just, there is none, but you're not at least doing chip damage. But like a base level playthrough, which is level 50 on crit, by the end of the game you're doing near chip damage still, and a lot of the fights you're basically just camping out with your MP, because you know, you're not gonna risk dying just to do a full combo that's barely gonna do any damage anyway. Although, going back to a little bit more of the mechanics, you don't have any iframes on a successful guard if you try to guard again. So if you guard, say, like, a projectile and you see another one coming, and you're like, or like another wave of them, say from like the fire guys, and you try to guard again, but it won't let you because, you know, there's cooldown, then you get kind of wrecked. And that was a problem in BBS as well. You can cartwheel out of the guard, but, you know, cartwheeling into another guard is a little tricky to pull off sometimes, because I'm talking about, like, projectiles can come at you pretty frequently. You'll see when you play the game. It's kind of bad, I feel, that there's so many projectile attacks that are just multi-hit. Same thing with Spellweaver Finisher, you're also wide open after that. But I mean, you can mash cartwheel out of those to kind of negate that, but it does get in the way a little bit, I feel. Next, I would probably complain about the lack of checkpoints in the game. It's not as noticeable on like your playthrough until you're probably getting to like post-game stuff. If you're going back for like chests or grinding or something, dying anywhere in these areas resets like everything, because the rooms are so big. For example, like practically the entire forest area is one big room, so going through all of that, getting all the chests on crit after you beat the game, you go all the way back to like the beginning. Not to mention that disaster of a final room where it's another giant long hallway room, and you get all the way to the end, fight enemies, you die, you're all the way back. So, you know, lack of being able to, you know, room transition kind of gets in the way of the way Kingdom Hearts generally is designed with those things, how you usually go back to the last transition. I would also complain about the platforming. I think it's very clunky and bad, to be honest. There's some neat things, like you can kind of like slide on the ground on a slope and such, but Aqua's movement is still just as clunky. Like, you have her double flight and her air slide. Air slide is just pure garbage to use. I mean, it's nice to go forward in the air, right? But, you know, it's so much cooldown, you know, nothing can really chain out of it. Double flight is a bit slow too. Just imagine in KH2 where it's Sora, all of his growth abilities, you know, you can aerial dodge into a glide and just like fly around. You can quick run, and if you fall off like a ledge, you can, you know, aerial dive into something, or sorry, aerial dodge. It's very nice that you can do things like that, but in this it's just very clunky and sloppy, I feel. Also, I would say, as far as platforming goes, it eats your jumps a lot. In that room where there's a lot of places to fall, and it, you know, brings you back a little bit, it eats your jumps on any kind of like slope very easily, and that bothers me a bit, that I could be like running on a bit of a slope, press jump a few times, and I don't jump. That's very unresponsive, I feel, for this kind of a game. So I hope that's something they work on a bit, but we'll see on that one. I guess as for the secret boss, I love that fight. I think it was extremely well designed, and, you know, my other videos showcase that, but it takes way too long to get to it, especially on crit. I would say on the base level crit, it takes basically a half an hour to get into that fight, which is like I'm punishing myself with garbage fights to get to the fun fight. Because, you know, believe it or not, all fights leading up to that, it's called the boss rush. All those fights leading up to the secret boss are all trash. They're not fun. It shows the flaws of the battle system on crit, and it just ruins motivation to repeatedly do the Aqua fight, secret boss, or whatever you want to call it. So that's something I hope they don't keep doing, because imagine in 2FM if to get to the data fight you had to beat like the core nobody fights every single time. Nobody would want to do that just to do a data fight or two, or all of them, or whatever. They would do it once and then never do it again. And that's kind of how I felt about this. I mean, sure, on beginner and probably standard, maybe even proud, you can get there relatively fast, sort of. But on crit and base level crit, it's not fun. Unless you're over leveled, I guess. I mean, if you shoot really high up in levels, but I was doing it at level 60 and I still wasn't really plowing through on crit. So that should probably be changed a bit. Suppose I'll talk about the negatives of the bosses. I've definitely ranted about these on stream a lot, as well as a lot of other players. Well, let's start with Devil's Wave. It is probably one of the worst, if not the worst, designed boss in the entire series. Let's start. It has no stagger, and it attacks whenever it wants, without any indication of when it's going to attack until it attacks. Even if you guard his attack, he can whiff you and then hit you, just based on what movement he decides to do around you, which obviously you have no say in. And that's just the first two Devil Waves attacks, which are both pretty bad. Then you have the final boss, which, you know, spoilers, I guess, but I'll probably tag the video a bit somewhere with spoilers. The final boss fight is just utter trash garbage. It can stun lock you whenever it wants, because, you know, it throws all those, you know, shadows, Alberts, whatever you want to call them, at you, and it can just stun lock you without any warning. And it can also attack without any warning. I mean, there's some signs when it probably will attack, but in the end, it can do an attack whenever it wants. It's never truly, really an open-to-attack boss. The mechanic of that final boss fight, too, is, you know, Wayfinder with Mickey does a lot of damage, but all of us that have played this so far, none of us have come up with a way to make it show up consistently. It seems completely random as long as you're doing some sort of attack. So we still don't know for sure, and that is the only way to deal reasonable damage to it, especially on crit and level 50 crit. On my level 50 crit playthrough, I got it to show up like once out of 10 plus times. It's ridiculous. So basically, all the Devil's Waves fights are absolute cancer. I guess, to touch on in the final boss fight, the second phase is also complete garbage. Its DM is probably one of the worst DMs I've ever seen. You pretty much have to get hit to dodge it, as far as we've seen so far. So if you're doing level 50 crit and you get hit once a little early, then you're probably going to die just because why not, right? And while KH games, especially, you know, 1 and 2, do have big bosses that don't stagger just like this, they at least give you, you know, the options to reasonably deal with that disadvantage, unlike in this game, where you kind of just get wrecked randomly because the boss decided to attack. So, with all things considered, I would say the series has potential if they build KH3 off of this tech demo, but things have to be fixed, because if it plays extremely similar to this, I won't be very interested in it, because there's so many, you know, problems that need to be touched up on. You know, stuff like simple things like adding more combo modifiers like KH2, you know, let's mix up our physical combos instead of it being the same basic physical combo every time, either ground or air. Let's not have bosses that don't stagger, although if they're going to be big bosses, at least give us options to reasonably, like, punish them and react to their attacks. You know, don't have no rhyme or reason if they decide to throw like an attack that can hit you in like a couple frames that you can't react to because you're in the middle of a combo. That's a bit of a problem, I feel. Granted, you could camp those boss fights out with magic for like 20 minutes on crit, but that doesn't sound very fun, and it's not. Scaling should be implemented better. Osaka team seems very bad at scaling for some reason. They got it pretty much perfect in 2FM level 1. I don't understand why whenever you're underleveled in BBS and DD, and even now you're still doing like extremely low amount of damage. That doesn't really add difficulty more than just, you know, make the fights way slower than they should be and more annoying. I would say, yeah, for sure, 2FM did that very well, and I hope they build off of that for their scaling system if they change it. And I guess for platforming, I want, you know, faster, more fluid platforming like 2FM. All this slow air sliding garbage is just not doing it for me. As I've already speedrun the game a few times, and platforming is probably the worst part of it next to the Devil's Wave fights. It's just, it could not be more annoying to do it well. So those are mostly my complaints. There will probably be some. There was already one patch, although it didn't seem to do anything in this game. But if they patch these things or change any of the mechanics, then I could update the description or the annotation. Some of this might be obsolete by the time you might be viewing this, but you know, these are my general concerns and how I felt about the game. I thought, you know, it's going in the right direction, but it still has problems. So let's see where they go from here, I guess. Just remember, don't be a fanboy. Be very critical of the games you like to play. Because for me, if I don't like the gameplay and the combat system, I'm not going to play the game very long. I'll just go back and play the ones that are more fun. So the only way to really be heard is to speak out too. You know, sometimes Square listens, sometimes they fix things, sometimes they patch things. So don't sit there quiet and be like, no, this is perfect. I'm fine with the way it is. You know, speak out if there's problems. And those of you who haven't played it yet, you know, I hope your first playthrough, you keep some of these things in mind instead of being, you know, like, graphics are pretty, music's great, Aqua's cool. Think about combat, you know, did you have fun on the Devil's Wave fights? Did mob fights, you know, tickle your fancy on Proud or Crit? Probably not, I would say, so we'll see. So thanks everyone for watching. I know this is kind of a different video, but I guess I'll keep you posted somewhere if opinions change, so see you guys.